Alabama set to take on Wisconsin for the first time in almost a century, and it seems like it's been that long since we've actually seen a live-action football game. All right, the last time a player from Alabama was taken in the NBA draft, oil had just hit $100 a barrel. Les Miles won his first BCS National Championship, and the year was dubbed the International Year of the Potato by the UN. That's actually true. Well, 3 weeks ago, after the Crimson Tides lost to Ole Miss, there were doubts as to whether the Alabama dynasty was still intact. One win in Athens, one in Tuscaloosa, and one epic Nick Saban rant later. The Tide are once again in the national spotlight. It is cold, it is windy, but that has not stopped anyone from piling into the stadium here in Albertville. And if you didn't think soccer was a growing sport in the U.S., take a look behind me. This is what we have going on. So the big win this week certainly propels the Tide into the next game and against a very familiar rival as they will head out of the SEC West and into the East. I assume they are. It's the biggest game they've had all year. I wish I had something to eat as well, but it's a good setup here for sure. Great games going on all across the valley tonight. Absolute madhouse here in the hotel lobby, and there's one reason and one team only that's causing all this ruckus: Alabama and head coach Nick Saban.
So easy stuff, super easy. Yeah, yeah, I could do that, no problem.
Judging by the amount of people that are here right now, you can tell there's one team on these guys' minds: Alabama in the house. He's from Australia. Came all the way to see Nick Saban.
So everybody just take that deep breath. It isn't the final rankings. Plenty of games left to play, including that little game Thanksgiving week called the Iron Bowl. In the spring, sure, A-Day is the most overhyped event on the calendar, but if it's an excuse to watch a game, who cares? That matchup between these two counts as a region game. And welcome in, everyone, to week number 3 of Friday Night Football. Ryan Marshall, Mark Freeman. So the previous 2 weeks, not that they don't matter, because they do. One win in Athens, one in Tuscaloosa, and one epic Nick Saban rant later. The Tide are once again in the national spotlight. Had all the makings of a showdown today. 10th-ranked Alabama, 9th-ranked Texas A&M. Nick Saban unbeaten when visiting Kyle Field. Defense contributing early on for the Crimson Tide. First quarter, Allen looking downfield, but Minkah Fitzpatrick won't be the last time you hear his name in this one. 33 yards the other way for the pick six. Alabama up 7-0. Still in the first. Derrick Henry, 11 consecutive games with a touchdown scored entering today. 55 yards later makes it 12 consecutive. Bama rolling 14-0 at this point. 153 yards in the first quarter alone for Henry. Second quarter, more from Henry on the goal line, makes it 21-3. The visions of last year's game coming to life later in the half. Kyle Allen, wrong jersey again this time. Eddie Jackson with the pick six. 93 yards for the score, makes it 28-6, but Texas A&M claws back third quarter, trailing by 15. Allen to Ricky Seals-Jones makes it a one-possession game, 28-20. Then the defense comes through again. Bob Jones grad, Reggie Ragland once again leading the team in tackles, and this one gets Allen from behind the line. And to cap it all off, it is more from Allen and more from Minkah. Fitzpatrick, pick, gone, game. Alabama goes on to dominate the Aggies. Final score 41-23.
Defense, we made some mistakes and gave up some plays.
At home, a 1-4 Jackson State visiting Alabama A&M. Can't ask for much better weather in this one. Bulldogs trying to give head coach James Spady back-to-back home wins for the first time in his career, but Jackson State shows up to begin. First quarter, Lamontez Ivy finds Jarius Mole in the flat, crosses the plane. Tigers up 6-0 after the missed PAT, now trailing 12-7. A&M starts to put it in gear. Damian May getting the nod at quarterback today off the draw. Picks up the first down. Later in the drive, though, it's May and hits Joaquin Davis. A&M takes the lead 13-12. They go on to win it 28-22. Back-to-back home wins for the Bulldogs. Next up, Magic City Classic. We're in the SEC. Big showdown in Baton Rouge. Unbeaten Florida visiting unbeaten LSU. Pay attention, kids. First quarter, the old flea flicker. Brandon Harris, Malachi Dupree, the best name in the SEC. That leads to a touchdown. LSU up 21-7. Now to the fourth quarter, tied at 28. And the fake is on. The Mad Hatter pulls it out. Tigers take the lead and go on to win it. Final score 35-28. How about Ole Miss and Memphis? Big implications in this one as we move over to Memphis, mainly for Alabama, having lost to Ole Miss a month ago. First quarter, this one all Ole Miss. Chad Kelly makes it 14-0, but here comes Memphis. Last minute of the first quarter, they get it going. Paxton Lynch showing why they're unbeaten so far this season. To Allen Cross. Tigers on the board. Memphis pulls off the shocker 37-14. your final. Other scores in the conference: Mississippi State, the win over Louisiana Tech. South Carolina, their first win without Coach Spurrier. And a game that was as awful as the score looks. Georgia edges Mizzou by 3. Well, an emotional scene tonight in Hazel Green as students and families try to get back to some semblance of normalcy, but not before they reflect on one of their own. This was the scene tonight at Hazel Green High School. Balloons released into the air in remembrance of Julian Jones, who died earlier this week. The team not running out, but walking out, hand in hand, to salute one of the best players on the team this year, even Huntsville High School, giving their condolences as well before the game. So the question becomes, how does someone move on from that? Facing tragedy just a few days ago and now has to put on a helmet and play football. Tough task, but what if it made you play with a purpose? Play inspired. Even just taking the field tonight, you're constantly being reminded of Julian, because when you get to the 11-yard line right here, there he is. Well, again, everybody, the 6th-ranked Crimson Tide are back to their winning ways again. After dropping 2 or 3 to Florida back in late March, they're on a roll once again. Winners of 7 of the last 9. And tonight, it isn't so much about keeping the trend, but more so to celebrate one of their own. The Tide taking on Middle Tennessee State tonight, but in Decatur to salute Priceville grad and Alabama senior Daniel Richard. An annual tour head coach Pat Murphy makes to every senior's hometown, and the Tide do not disappoint early on. First inning, 2 on, Marissa Runyon. See ya. Straightaway center field, forget about it. 3-run homer, her 8th of the season. And still in the first now, the bases loaded for Kerrigan Fain. And that'll make the bases unloaded. She brings the ball in. Not bad for someone who had just 2 hits on the entire season. Tied now up 7-0. They go on to win it 11-0 your final. Daniel Richards finishes 0 for 2 with a run scored. Other softball scores for you. Alabama A&M hosting a doubleheader versus Lemoyne-Owen. Big time sweep, combined 32-0 score, including a no-hitter, while Auburn has no problem with UAB. And in baseball, Alabama A&M loses to Morehead State, while Auburn Tigers get the win over Georgia State. Up in the big leagues, Braves taking on the Marlins. A low-scoring affair. Top 4, 1 on Freddie Freeman. But Giancarlo Stanton, the biggest jerk in the ballpark. Full extension for the catch. And the double play at first. But in the 7th, A.J. Pierzynski, yard. That's all the Bravos would need. 2-run homer. Braves win 2-0 and move to 3-0 to start the season. Now, all the talk here is about Danielle and Alabama softball back in Tuscaloosa. There's a new big man on campus. New men's basketball head coach Avery Johnson officially introduced to the media today. And much like Bruce Pearl did at his introductory press conference at Auburn, if there was a bonus in Johnson's contract for owning a press conference, he certainly did that today, setting lofty expectation and also addressed those critics of his resume regarding no recruiting experience.
My daughter's graduating from the University of Pennsylvania with a double degree. So those qualifications, I think they meet the recruiting qualifications.
And after the press conference, hit the football field. Johnson meeting up with football head coach Nick Saban as the Tide get back to work for practice number 10 of the spring. Remember, A-Day is next Saturday for both Auburn and Alabama. Also back on the practice field, Alabama A&M with practice number 5 of the spring. Remember, this Friday is their Friday night under the lights practice that all the public is encouraged to go to, and their first scrimmage of the year is set for Saturday. Really cool to see Alabama make the trip out and get outside of Tuscaloosa, especially for people. You see a lot of youth softball teams out there because these are kids that don't get to go to Tuscaloosa all the time to see some of the best players in the country, and they're right in your backyard.
In golf, more often than not, you can tell how well a ball is played based on the sound alone. And on that theory, you'd think the more times you hear the sound, the better the player is.
Her ball striking right now is that of a college player.
And the beauty of it all, it has no bearing on age.
How can somebody 5'1", 90 pounds hit the ball 230 yards?
That's why Michaela Merard just might be what the sport of golf really needs. A 12-year-old prodigy out of Huntsville who, since the day she picked up a club, was ahead of the pack.
She was about 2 years old. I got back from playing golf in the morning and took her down to the club and played around on the putting green for about 20 minutes and went and got ice cream, and I kind of thought that would probably be the end of it.
Instead, it was just the beginning. Michaela, as the years went by, started producing that winning sound so consistently that she entered her first tournament at the age of 6.
And when she did that, I just kind of said, okay, hey, listen, there may be something here.
Michaela has gone on to enter over 140 tournaments. Oh, and she also won 102 of them.
It's a lot of fun. We're serious, but like in a good way. Like we kind of joke around. 2-putt and Dr. Pepper.
It is so fun to carry the clubs for your own daughter.
235.
Ooh, yeah. Up a hill. Jinx.
I think Michaela and I have a very special father-daughter relationship, and a lot of that is because of the amount of time we do spend together.
We're just really close that we're like really friend in competition.
If everybody will enjoy the game as she enjoys it, then the game would be a better place.
So you have a 12-year-old who's playing against college athletes on scholarship and is already beating them.
176.
And with all that success, you know colleges are going to come knocking because they're already at the tournaments she enters. They just happen to be looking at golfers 5 years older.
I don't like think about them like, oh my gosh, I'm being watched. I mean, I still have like 6 more years, but college-wise, I just want to go to an SEC school.
And I'd be willing to bet each and every one of them likes the sound of that. The best part about all of this, on top of being a star golfer, star softball player, straight A student as well. And what's great, you know colleges are going to be looking at her. They aren't even allowed to contact her yet.
That's right.
Like her dad has said that she's gone up to the coaches, but they say, sorry, we just can't talk yet.
What a nice young lady, you know?